How's it going, everyone? Hope you're doing well. Recently, we've had confirmations of reprints for Twilight Masquerade. Today, we're going to be talking about how those reprints are affecting card prices in the set. And surprisingly, we have some card prices that haven't dropped too low, like the Eevee. And then we still have card prices for cards like the Perrin that actually continue to go up, even with the reprints for Twilight Masquerade that are getting revealed. So, welcome to the channel, MJ Okage today, and we got a really good one today too because we're actually going to compare Lost Origin and Twilight Masquerade. So if a lot of you have been collecting and investing these past couple years at least, you probably remember that when Lost Origin got reprints a few times throughout its release, this set was released in about September of 2002, we can actually track how reprints affected this set. So if we go ahead and go back to August of 2022, you can see post-release that this set was selling for about $110. That's pretty normal, right? Back then, there was a lot of product for Sword and Shield. The demand wasn't as high. So with a lot of supply and a medium amount of demand, you had pretty nice, healthy booster box prices. Nowadays, demand is so much higher and the supply is less, right? And there's so many stores buying a product and so many people or scalpers buying a product. And even investors, there's a lot more investors today than there was 2 years ago when I started investing. And so just so all of you guys are aware, I've been investing for probably about 3, almost to 4 years. And I just been started out as a collector, and I realized that I really like Pokemon and I want to start collecting more, and I really like booster box collecting. So that's kind of what got me to invest more in Pokemon products. And my channel is mainly a channel based on Pokemon investing, but at the same time, I love collecting at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and look at this data right here. So in March of 2023, we had booster boxes get down to $115. So that's only about maybe a year later. So prices went up by $5. And then the booster boxes starting getting up to $144. Now we can look at the reprints. And when reprints came, the booster box dropped to $127 in January of 2024. So the set was released in 2022. Here's 2024. And the booster box came down to $103 to then $130. And if you pay attention closely, right around December, you could see that booster boxes were dropping to about $120, whereas before the reprints, they were about $140, $138, $146. And I remember these prices, and it doesn't seem like a big difference, but back then, you guys, everyone was like, no way, our booster boxes are losing value. Let's just sell right now and make $30 on a booster box, which is really not that much, right? Especially with eBay fees being about 13.25, or it's 13.25%, something like that, almost 14% in fees, which isn't that much. Every $100, it's $14. But again, the booster box was $115. It shot up to $144, $135. And then we get those reprints again 2 years later, in December, January, during Black Friday. That's when oftentimes we do get reprints on sets. And so the booster box dropped about $20, $15. And I remember buying some for $115. And then look, you guys, after this set, I think just recently went out of rotation. And after we kind of confirmed that we're not getting any more reprints of Lost Origin into 2024 last year, the booster box was able to get up to $168, and now we even have some TCG player data calculated, and then it went to $200 in August of last year, $250 in December, and then $299 in January, and now $300 and about $50 now in the month of March right now. Yeah, about $350, TCG player $396. So basically what I'm getting at, everyone, is that these reprints will affect the booster box prices by about $20. We could see the same thing played out. Here's the all-time data for the Giratina. Same thing played out with this Giratina V. January post-release, it was about a $250 card, $220 card. And then we could see it managed to go up to $320 in May 2023. And then we could see around the same time of reprints, that's basically when this card starts to drop around Black Friday, December, from $317 to $255 to then $228. So you guys, really big drop, right? $322 down to around the holiday season to $241. So that's about an $80 drop. That's a pretty significant drop. Then throughout December, January, it's $235. And remember, earlier, it was a $300 card like the year before that. And then we get to 2024, and then now it's only a $250 card, $230 card. And then throughout 2024, it started going up again. Alt arts, were exploding in value. Sword and Shield sets were no longer being printed anymore. Everyone kind of safely assumed we wouldn't get any more product. And we actually did get a decent, some product here and there early last year. And that's where that data comes in right here around January to February, March. We were getting some Pokemon Center restocks of Fusion Strike. But Lost Origin, we weren't really getting anything else besides what was on the secondary market. Then it went up to $480. Then it went back down to $380 in August of 2024. And so this is the alt art boom right here. And then the price was kind of stable after the boom to $466. We saw price corrections back down to $330. And remember, it was $460 right here. And then now we're currently in another bull market boom for Pokemon, and especially Sword and Shield, because we don't have any new product for Sword and Shield. Everything that's out there is on the secondary market, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, all of that, right? And so now going back to Twilight Masquerade, same thing is kind of going on. We're getting official reprints. Distributors are selling the product at an expensive price. They're not really selling the product. DC distributors like MJ Holdings and like Southern Hobby, like card shops are having to buy booster boxes for, let's say, $220, right? So the market price hasn't really dropped on Twilight Masquerade. It's only dropped from, let's see right here, let's go from March to $220. It went up to $226 and now dropped to $221. But we've been aware about reprints for quite a while, and this is honestly the data for March. This is all March data right here. So look at this data. The volume is pretty good at 5 to 15 booster boxes being sold. And look at this volatility. It has a medium volatility, right? Because you could see we're barely in March 15th right now, and the booster box right now in February, it started going up, right? I remember I sold one for $190 before Valentine's Day, and it was $190. Then it went to $210. And then in March, it started just kind of going up to $230. And ever since people started talking about reprints these past 2 weeks, the rumors turned out to be true. Now we're seeing that because of the reprints, this booster box has dropped from $234 down to $218 and $221. So it's dropped about $20. So reprints really affect market sentiment. Everyone kind of gets worried about reprints, and they think they're gonna lose a lot of value. Who knows when people bought in? It looks like we're having a decent amount of people buy in February, March at around, what was it, $198 to $200 to $221. People thought they got a $30 gain, right? And now some of them might feel like they're having a $20 loss, maybe a $30 loss if people were buying at $200. And like I said, I sold one for $190, but the person was actually going to rip it and try to pull the Eevee. So when it comes to reprints, those are kind of actually our best opportunity to invest into whatever set we're looking to get more of. And so reprints are a great way to dollar cost average. If you bought a booster box at an expensive price, let's say someone bought it at $230, now the booster box market price is $220. And you have a good timetable, we should see in the coming like month or two if it's going to drop to $215, $200. And then right here, the recent announcements and release of the reprints haven't really affected the cards too much. So we're going to get into the cards now. We talked about reprints with Lost Origin and how it affected Lost Origin and how booster boxes dropped maybe $20, maybe $30, but then they go right back up. And similar with the Giratina V, it lost, at some points $80 in value, but then the Giratina V went back up, right? After reprints, after a period of time. So same thing with the Greninja. We could see the last month right here, we could see that it still blew up. It went up in price from $363 on February 15th to $410. So it went up in 1 month. That's a lot. That's $50. It went up by $50, right? And then since February 24th, it's dropped from $411 down to $391. So that's about a $20 drop, right? And if we look at the last 3 months, in January, it was selling for $339, and it managed to get all the way to $409. So that is a $70 to $80 rise in price. Kind of reminds you of the Giratina V, right? And now it's going through price corrections where it's dropped by $10, right? Basically, since the announcement of the reprints, it was still able to get up from $360 to $410. So about a $50 jump, and ever since the reprint news, it's gone down by $20. So it's definitely volatile, right? Because of people are worried they're going to lose, they're going to lose out, and a lot of people collect cards, and then maybe sometimes they sell cards because maybe they need the money, maybe they want to go after something else, maybe they don't like the card anymore, or oftentimes because they know they can make some money off of it. And it's awesome to collect Pokemon cards and rip product. And then eventually some people are like, well, this card is $200. Let me just sell it, get my money back, and pay for things that I actually need or whatever, right? So going back to investing, when it comes to reprints, those are good opportunities to just look at the prices and to see how much is it dropping, and is it something that you want to collect? Is it something that you want to invest in? What's the risk? And when it comes to reprints, again, the risk is substantial, right? Pokemon is a risky, it's a trading card game. It works differently than like the stock market or the economy. Sometimes if the economy's tough, people are still buying Pokemon product. And when the economy's doing great, people are still buying Pokemon product. And right now, Pokemon itself is in really high demand. So going back on an overview, the booster box for Twilight Masquerade is $221 is the market price. Last month it was $234, and in early February it was about $200. So it's still up from February by about $20. So even with the reprints, this booster box is still selling for $220. And before the reprints, it was on its way up to $233, maybe $240, maybe $250. Who knows, right? Because the demand is so big for that Greninja, just like the demand is so big for, look at the Greninja in the PSA 10. It's still about an $800 PSA 10 right now. It hasn't really taken a big hit, and that's the gem rate is high. There's 4,900 PSA 10s versus 3,600 PSA 9. So the gem rate on the 10 is higher. And let's see the Lost Origin card gem rate. I haven't done a video on the calculations. I'll do that in the future, but this has more PSA 10s than PSA 9s right here. And you could see this card rocket in October 2024 from $695 now to $1,469. So it's definitely a more expensive card than the Greninja, but at one point, these two cards almost cost the same amount. Actually, the Greninja was more at $750. So it just goes to show, could the Greninja hit $1,400 one day? It is going to take, maybe 2 more years, 2026, because the Lost Origin set was released in 2022, and now it's 2025, so that's 3 years later. This set was released We could check all time in 2024. So 3 years later would be 2027. So investing is definitely a long-term thing, but there's definitely some short-term flips that you can do during different kinds of markets. And so I'm going to save a video in a few weeks for when I'm out of town. I'm going to have videos on short-term investing and long-term investing, and just kind of like how to do the two different dynamics. I've done both. I recently was a card vendor for the first time and sold a good amount of product. You could check out my videos on YouTube for my first vending experience. Sold Evolving Skies, a lot of Twilight Masquerade, did a lot of trades. I bought a lot of singles from people and gave out free cards. It was a wonderful event, and I'm glad that I get to do vending. I'll probably do it again in maybe 3 to 4 months, and stock up on singles and inventory again, and try to sell some things that I've been holding for a while. But now let's see the price effects on the EV right here. We can see that the EV in, let's see, February was selling for about $100 to $95. And then after the reprint news, it dropped down to now $82. So, but you can see that, and we can even check the last month right here. It's down 11% ever since the reprint news, from $97 down to $82. And look at the popularity of this card. And that's why I say Twilight Masquerade is one of the better sets in Scarlet and Violet, because not only does it have the Greninja, but a lot of people do like this Eevee. And with all the evolutions and prismatic evolutions, this is still a really popular card. Look at the volume. You're having about 7 copies of this card being sold at $82. Even though it's dropped in price, you can see that we almost have an increase in volume right here. There's more cards being sold than before when it was almost $100. So people are still interested in the Eevee. You can see the PSA 10, on the other hand, has dropped. It managed to jump in December from $220 to $344. So it's gone up $220, or no, $120 since December. And then now, though, since February 7th, 2025, it was a $346 PSA 10, and it's dropping and trending in the downward direction from $346 down to $272. So it's lost about $70 in value. And that's why you also have to be cautious during this bull market right now. And those short-term plays are short-term for a reason. You might not have a lot of time to resell something that you bought at a high price. So definitely look at the prices and look at the market history for that card and the market sentiment. Some people might not be buying as much for certain cards if they think they're overpriced. And then at the same time, a card can seem overpriced, and 3 years later, it's the Giratina V, and it still hits $700 when it used to be overpriced at $350. Next, we have this Perrin that's actually breaking the mold right here. It's actually trending in the upward direction, even with reprints. You could see this last month, it's even gone up from February from $82 up to $106. And who knew that trainers haven't died fully, because the Perrin is still popular, and it does pair well with the other card, the Hisuian Growlithe, which is getting really popular. So that could be another reason. It looks like it's pretty popular too, with the volume being about 1 to 5 copies being sold every few days. The Chansey as well has also gone up. Let's see this last month. It's very volatile this last month. We could see that it's sold for $26, and now it's still selling for $26, but it managed to go up to $28. So not a big change. If we look at the last 3 months, though, it's definitely gone up from December and January being about a $10 to $15 card, now to a $25 card. So it's gone up $15 since January. The Tatsugiri has also been going up. Recently, it dropped from $30 on March 9th down to $24. And if you look at the last 3 months, however, though, it's gone up from $15, $14 to now $24. So it's gone up by $10. So yeah, everyone, the Greninja is, losing a little bit of value for the actual single, from $411 down to $391. So it's down $20 ever since the reprint. And the booster box itself is down from $234 to $221. So it's down about $10 to $20. Yeah, just about. 10 to 20, more like $10. 234 was the highest price point, I believe, for this booster box. Yeah, 224, and now it's 221, 230, 221. Yeah, so about a $10 drop, but it's still up there, you guys. It's still expensive. And like I said, with Lost Origin, same thing happened to Lost Origin. You know, it dropped from $144, 145 right here, down to 125 to down 115. And then in January, it started to take off with the alternate art boom. So there you have it, everyone. Check out my other videos. Peace.